A grieving widow seeks help from the master. She fears her only child is near death. "Why me? He is the light of my life. He's all I have left," she weeps. When the master looked at the child, he realized that it had already died. He smiled at the woman and agreed to help her if she would do one thing for him. Anxiously, the woman ran into town and rang the bell of the first house she came to. She told the woman at the door she needed a glass of water from a house where there had been no death. The woman looked at her in amazement. The lady at the door told the woman, "Good luck. You won't be able to find anyone who hasn't experienced death." Undaunted, the woman continued her search. But by nightfall, she still had no glass of water. She realized she'd been fooling herself all along. Deep in her heart, she knew that her child was already dead and that death was inevitable. She went before the master and asked for liberation, telling him, "I know now that death is not personal or some form of punishment. It's just part of life. Please, show me that place inside of myself which never dies."
In the quieter times in my life where I'm kind of left alone to myself, I have an opportunity to look at one of the great arts of my own life. It hasn't been one that has always been mastered very well, believe me. Like most of you, I've had my times of difficulty or my times of opportunity where things were not going so well. And I wasn't inside of myself gentle enough to really get the message of what was happening. In those moments where I couldn't accept things as they were, where they seemed unfair or cruel or one-sided, what it basically was in me a lack of gentleness. True strength, I found, is not trying to rationalize and overpower something that we don't like or can't accept. But it has a lot to do with being so gentle on the inside that we are willing to get the message of those things which we find very difficult to rationalize or to understand. It's sad to think that so much of our life is based on rationalization. For instance, when things happen to us that are difficult for us to understand, what we basically try to do is find a reason for those things happening by blaming other people, or saying we made a mistake in trusting someone, or we made a mistake in being with someone or doing something. This isn't really the truth. This is just pure ego rationalization and has nothing at all to do with the deep art of spiritual acceptance. We're not getting to the feeling when we live like that. When I am not gentle on the inside of my being, when I have built no meditative space inside of me for things to come up and to be brought into the light of clarity and understanding, then all I have is my violence, my rationalization, my ego, my sense of right and wrong, good and bad, which have to do with self-preservation and survival. It has nothing at all to do with compassion and love and deep spiritual understanding. I'm not bringing things, so to speak, into the light of me. What I'm doing is trying to find a reason and a rationale out of my dark side. Whenever we think that revenge or anger or aggression in any way is going to change something, rectify something, or justify something in our life, we are far and away from our spiritual side. And we pay a very dear price for being that far away from ourselves. The price is that we pay is in deep hurt, in deep personal humility. We rip the soul apart. There are some things that our soul cannot tolerate. Our soul cannot tolerate brutality. Our soul cannot tolerate the idea that we cannot accept the things that are happening to us and get the message of them, that we have to repeat pain and suffering over and over and over again. Our soul cannot prolong agony in us either. When the soul feels a sense of agony and it's prolonged in us due to our rigidity, our lack of gentleness and accepting things as they are, that's when we start to find real problems in our life. The art of acceptance. It's a difficult one because it requires of me a tremendous amount of, as I said to you earlier, gentleness and space. Some things have come to me that I've looked at in my life and I've thought, how could this happen? This isn't what I meant. This isn't what I wanted. This was not my intent. But everything in life is impermanent, I've found. Nothing stays the same. Happiness comes, happiness goes. Illness comes, health returns. Health comes, illness comes. We have all sorts of ways in which we live our life. But one thing is for sure, nothing stays the same for long. What we must do is live our life silently inside. Letting things come and letting things go. Letting things be as they are and receiving the message and being so gentle on the inside, so compassionate on the inside, that we're willing to accept things just as they are because we're quiet enough on the inside to hear the message and not to confuse the messenger with the message. Sometimes we get angry at the message because it has a lot to do with our expectations and our desires. It has a lot to do with the disintegration of our hopes. If you can't accept me just the way I am, I might as well be talking to an empty theater. If you don't accept people the way they are and you put upon them labels and ideas and what you think they should and should not be, you miss the opportunity of accepting them for where they are. And missing that opportunity, have you ever thought that other people are judging you exactly the same way? If we only love those things that seem to love us and that we approve of, as Jesus said, what reward have we? We have no reward. The object is not to love those who agree with us, but to accept all things, both those that agree and those that disagree, but to remain so silent, so spacious on the inside, so gentle, that we are able to treat things with compassion and understanding. When things come to us that we cannot accept, it deals more and talks more about who we are on the inside than anything else. The more compassion, the more meditative space I've given myself in my life, the more I can see that I wasn't able to hear a lot of the things that were going on around me. I thought I heard things. I thought I knew what people meant. I thought I understood. But the truth of the matter, I couldn't and I can't. It all depends on my level of acceptance. If I can accept the space of which another person may be in, that is very different than my own, then I can hear what they're really saying. Sometimes it's been years and months before I really understood what was going on. Not because of analyzation, not because of mind, not because of intellect, but basically because only in that period of time was I able to get enough distance to be able to really hear what was being said and what was really meant. If you give yourself enough gentleness and enough silence, you'll be able to hear what people mean beyond what they're trying to say. You'll be able to hear what I mean beyond what I'm trying to say even on this program. Have you ever considered that what you and I have been able to accept in mind, in emotion, in intellect, in the form of our beliefs and our attitudes are creating a barrier for us that does not allow us to really open ourselves up to hear the message behind the messenger, to hear what's really being said instead of what we want to hear? As you listen to this message, are you conceiving that you already know what I mean based on the premise of what you believe in as a person? If a person believes the way I do, so to speak, then they think they can agree with my message. If they do not believe in what I'm talking about, then they think they disagree with my message. Both premises are very wrong. Acceptance comes in being so gentle inside that we can take the I only don't know attitude. It's an art just to listen to someone. The deepest love we make to each other is not sexual. The deepest love we make to each other is listening. Just to listen without trying to understand. Just to listen without trying to analyze. Without trying to prepare some sort of discourse on our part to get back at another person or to try to rebut them, but just to listen because we can. In that deep gentleness that occurs in listening, a subtle miracle begins to happen. It's the miracle of understanding. Understanding doesn't come with intellectual experience, it comes with inner experience, inner silence. It comes with an inner gentleness. I say that the most powerful property that you own inside of yourself is your silence, your gentleness, your compassion, your ease inside. And when you and I are not taking things personally, when you and I are not concerned about what another person believes as opposed to what we believe, that's when deep personal understanding begins to arise in us. And now, instead of taking everything as foe and against, somebody who is for us and somebody who is against us, we start to be able to understand that everybody's in the place that they're at, and we begin to be aware of where they're at, and we don't expect more out of them than where they are. Now we can understand. And we can be gentle with people. We can be compassionate and forgiving. Sometimes it saddens me to think that I miss so many people in my life because I was so busy being unaccepting, being terribly judgmental, analytical about them. Before they even started out, I thought they were wrong. Before they even had a chance with me, I didn't like them. What a sad thing for me to do with my life. And how much pain and suffering in later times that caused me. The humiliation of such an activity, of living in such a way, is one that is truly revolutionary. But when one gets the gist of this and remembers it's how gentle I am inside, not how sure I am inside, but how gentle I am on the inside, that's when deep acceptance begins to occur. This woman in our story with Buddha wanted to accept something that was bigger and larger than herself. She had to accept death. That's a hard one to accept, especially when it seems so unacceptable to us. That if one is gentle, one realizes deep within oneself that death is an inevitable thing, and that it is not here to punish us or to reward us. It's just a part of the isness of life. It isn't a beginning and it isn't an end. Show me that which lives within me, she said, which never dies. That is the true art of acceptance. And the deeper you know about yourself, the deeper you go into that space of livingness and death inside yourself, the more you will be able to accept those things which you thought were bad, accept those things that you thought were good, and either put a label on them as good or bad. They're just a part of what Buddha called tathata, the isness of life. Well, that was easy for him to say. Boy, do I have some questions for him coming up. Probably the most difficult thing for us to understand is that everything comes to us to accept. The worst tragedies are there for us to accept, and that is the difficulty of our acceptance. We want to think that there are some things that are absolutely unacceptable. They may not be things that we want. They may not be things that we think are beneficial to us, but they're there. And by not accepting them, we don't change one single thing. I'm sure this is a very difficult teaching for a lot of you, and many of you may even disagree or even be more confused. So Gregory, what's on your mind? So all this is again easy for you to say. What if when people are abusing me, am I supposed to just take their abuse? Is that what you mean? I don't think we're saying, Gregory, for you to accept the abuse, although sometimes to accept the abuse is such a beautifully humbling experience within you. It depends on what you call abuse. If it's physical abuse, I don't think you should have to accept that. But there are some sort of abuses that are not abuses. For instance, what happens when you get what's coming to you? Do you call that an abuse? Sometimes things happen to us and we don't know exactly why. We create a lot of, if I may say, karma in the way we live our life. And sometimes things hit us, and instead of us rejecting them or hating them or resenting them, sometimes the most beautiful thing we can do is to draw them in and to accept them. And not to try to wonder where this came from in our life and why this is happening, but to accept it. Maybe something has come into your life that hurts you very much. Not something you expected, not something you designed. You can't see anywhere within your life where this could have happened, karmically speaking. But if you accept it and live with it, you'll find that there is a message in it. I think what becomes unacceptable to us is the messenger. When I'm more concerned about the messenger than the message itself, then I can't accept what is coming to me. I think most of us would call abuse anything that happens to us that is not convenient, that does not profit us or give us some sort of gain. I hardly think that's abuse. I do think things come to us such as illness. I do think that there are sudden changes in our life that we look at as destroying our convenience and destroying what we call our routine in life that are not abuses at all. They're just things we need to look at because our life needs a change. I hope that kind of helps you with that one. You always had trouble with that. What else? You talk about being gentle, but isn't that a little unmanly? Oh, our masculinity problems. Gentleness to us refers to a feminine side of our nature. And when a man is feminine, sometimes people think that he has a sexual problem. How many times have people called Aspire and said, get that homosexual off the air as though I were gay or something? They have a hard time with the idea of gentleness and kindness, that a man can be gentle and kind and still at the same time be in a male's body and be very masculine in that male body and also be what we would call heterosexual. We have such problems with sex. Men are homophobic as it is. And I'm telling you, God is reached through the feminine, not just through the masculine. There has to be a masculine part of us and also a feminine part of us that receives God. It's almost like becoming impregnated. It's almost like allowing things to move through us. Women, generally speaking, through their bodies have a tremendous acceptance of being pregnant, of having children, of going through that whole experience. We as men, we're very rigid. We think that controlling things and manipulating things makes us strong and powerful. I'm saying to you, gentleness is a feminine side, bending without breaking, being with things as they are, being equally male, equally female inside of both men and women. In other words, knowing when to allow the feminine to take you deeper and deeper into yourself and knowing when the masculine needs to be there to help you understand things, to set things up, so to speak, for the feminine. Homophobia, it's a big problem in people. It's a big problem in both men and women. If we don't resolve it, our spirituality, well, it has problems. What else, Greg? I do have trouble listening, I admit that, but remember, no one's listening to me either. No one's listening to you because you aren't listening to you, Greg. And when you choose to listen to who you are and what you are and the way you are, then other people will appreciate what you have to say and what you don't have to say. Listening is an art, and first we must learn to listen to ourselves. Don't be so concerned about what other people are saying about you or to you. Try to listen to the message behind it. When you get caught up in the messenger, you lose the message, and the message is within you. I hope you get it, Greg, and this has been of some help. Well, that's easy for me to say now. The part in this program that was so deeply moving and important to me to share with you was the earlier part when I told you about there were many situations that happened in my life that I wasn't gentle enough on the inside to be able to handle. And because of that, it didn't allow me to accept what was really happening, what the message was all about. A lot of things are going to happen in our life as human beings. We're going to have a lot of disappointments. There's going to be some tragedies. There's going to be happy times. There's going to be wonderful times. But if we don't understand the message, due to the fact that we are too harsh on the inside, or too confused, or too greedy, or too worried, or too angry, then we'll miss the message, and those experiences will not only lose significance, but they'll have to be repeated many times until we understand what they're all about. So it's important that we develop a compassionate and gentle nature on the inside. Not so concerned about what is happening to us, but very gentle and accepting on the inside so we can receive the message from the messenger and not be blaming the messenger for the message itself. Because everything comes to us honestly to help us, not to hurt us, not to take away from our life, not to destroy our life. No matter how tragic it may seem to you or how difficult it may be to you or to me, everything comes to us to heal us, to give us a sense of light on the inside. If I'm angry and harsh on the inside, I won't be able to see it. I really won't be able to hear it. And that's why we meditate. That's why we practice. Sitting in silence, sitting alone, hearing the sound of one hand clapping, listening to silence, being alone with it and getting the message of that, because the earth and the universe and life itself speaks the language of silence. And when I'm quiet enough on the inside and gentle enough on the inside, then everything comes to me and offers me new light. I'm not taking life personally anymore. I'm starting to deal with my feelings, allow for my feelings, give space to my feelings, and now life changes. Things become supportive instead of negative. Work on that a little bit. Practice being unconditional inside of yourself. I think you'll find a deep change in your life this week if you do. Thank you for letting me share with you this morning and be a part of your life through this kind of awkwardness on TV. I deeply appreciate your help and your support. Namaste.